Well, in this month's Eye on Economic Development segment, we take a closer look at Indy's Red Line, which is about to launch after years and years of anticipation. Also, Mayor Hogsett's Inclusive Growth Incentives Plan and venture capital activity in the state of Indiana. I'm pleased to welcome, as always, national site selection firm KSM Location Advisor CEO Tim Cook and President Katie Culp. They just returned from a speaking engagement at the Trust Belt Conference in Louisville. First of all, welcome, but glad you're back here from Louisville. Major conference. Lots of decision makers and economic developers from around the country are there. What were they talking about, and how does that relate to maybe what's going on here in Indianapolis and the state of Indiana?
Well, in addition to talking about bourbon a lot, they talked
maybe sampling some.
Exactly, yeah. A lot of the talk was about what kind of solutions are out there for workforce development. What can we do to make sure that this economy continues to hum along so that they can do the kind of projects that they want? How do they work with collaboratively with communities and partners? It was great conference, I think. Katie, you'd agree. There was a lot of robust discussion about a variety of economic development issues.
Your big takeaway, Katie, because you go to those and it's interesting to hear what people are saying from other parts of the country and how it relates to what's going on here.
Well, you know, one of the wonderful things about the economy having been doing so well is that labor market's tight, but people are looking at creative, alternate ways to tap into different pockets of the workforce that have been overlooked before. And so there was a lot of discussion. It dovetails nicely into some of the things going on in our city and state that officials are trying to take a look at workforce development and figure out how to break down those silos and work together in a business-friendly way.
Yep, workforce, talent, those are big issues, and they relate back to mass transit, which has been talked about for many, many years here in Indianapolis. And we're about to see the first phase of that future mass transit plan with the launch of the Red Line. We're going to have Indigo's new CEO, Inez Evans, on the show next week to talk about that. But Katie, as we near the launch of the Red Line, your thoughts? A lot of discussion about it now, especially around our office here where the Red Line is very close.
I know, you know firsthand. Yeah. Well, you know, change is hard, and it is a different way for both car drivers and the Indigo riders to move around our city. So there's been some growing pains, but I think it's such an important tool from a workforce standpoint, and not just for those who may not have cars, but for millennials that don't want to drive. So that's a really important piece, and I think it's cool that they're looking at ways to partner up with groups like IPS and kind of guarantee, if you will, a certain supply of riders, and I hope they continue to do stuff like that.
Tim, how important do you think it is that the Red Line, which is the 13-mile stretch, essentially I think Broad Ripple to UIndy, that it's successful and that it begins that process of expanding mass transit?
I think it's really important. We invested a lot of political capital, a lot of just regular capital to make this happen. I think Indy is really banking on the fact that they're trying to look like other cities that are peer cities that have successful mass transit programs. So I think it's a key part of our future, and it needs to work.
And some people kind of dismiss the idea that mass transit is needed for talent attraction and talent retention. But you're all in the game, in the economic development game on a daily basis. You would, I assume, would refute that.
Yeah, I would definitely disagree with that position. I mean, you take a place like Nashville, Tennessee, that does not have mass transit, and they're dinged a lot of times by our clients when they're looking at Nashville as a location because the commute time, the traffic is a burden that is off-putting. And so this is an investment and a first step towards differentiating ourselves that way. All
right. Also, recently we saw Indianapolis Mayor Joe Hogsett and the Indy Chamber come out with an inclusive growth strategy, which I thought was interesting. A number of elements included there, but basically making the economy, making Indianapolis, the region, more inclusive.
It's interesting because at the conference that Katie and I spoke at, one of the issues was how do states and communities collaborate better? And I think that's at the core of this program or this initiative, which is if we're giving incentives to companies, do we also demand from them to be good community partners, be involved in their neighborhoods? And I think that's something that the city has always done informally, but this is to kind of codify it as part of the incentive programs.
Your initial take on it sounds great, the plan, but the ability to implement it, to make it happen.
I think they've got the working parts already in place because whether a company is engaged in the community or not, that is already part of the discussion when they offer incentives. Now it's a matter of actually making it part of those contracts to ensure that they do what they said they were going to do.
Yep. Katie, venture capital report came out from Elevate Ventures showing venture capital activity is increasing over 2018. The size of the deals, though, continue to lag a bit. But the venture capital seems to be getting better, but still a ways to go.
Yeah, I think the other promising piece, I think we were second in the Midwest of the amount of venture capital offered. And I think that's really impressive for our home state when you consider some of the competitors.
Yep. Everyone's talking about the R word, recession. Is a recession in the offing? Of course, there's always going to be a recession at some point in the future, but some people pointed to next year. The RV industry, big piece in the Wall Street Journal this week, citing Elkhart as a bellwether with the downturn in the RV sector. Your take on that, Tim?
I think there are mixed signals right now. You have things like that happening, but then you have real estate is still a very hot industry. We have not seen really a downtick in the number of projects that we do, but certainly those warning signs are out there. You see it in the stock market, and I think everybody's taking notice.
Yeah, final question to you, Katie. Just the psychology of the possibility of that being out there. Does that affect, decision makers and activity in the economic development world?
I think it does. I think everybody's anticipating it, and so it kind of speeds up everything that's going on right now. We're all anxious to finalize deals. I think company representatives want that financial approval from the board and to get the okay to go ahead before anything changes, which is good. It's a good time to be out in the business world.
Very good. Katie Culp, Tim Cook, KSM Location Advisors, another great perspective on economic development. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Gary.
We'll see you soon. And we'll be right back after this.